My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi, I'm Sasha Eburne, and my favorite quote in relation to leadership is, "Because a goal without a plan is just a wish."
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Are you tasked with ordering food for your office? Let me tell you about Easy Cater. With over 100,000 restaurants to choose from nationwide and 24/7 customer support, Easy Cater helps assistants like you and me succeed at work and makes our lives easier. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more. Hey friends, welcome to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's episode 236. You can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/236, leaderassistant.com/236. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows here, and thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And also thanks for sharing and leaving reviews on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. I appreciate the support over the last 235 plus episodes. So today I'm excited to be speaking with Sasha Eburne. Sasha is a virtual assistant business owner and virtual assistant business coach. And Sasha, first of all, welcome to the show. And what part of the world are you in?
Thank you so much for having me. I am from the Gold Coast, Australia.
Awesome. And what's something about you personally that you'd love to share with everyone listening, whether it's hobbies, favorite book or Netflix show, kids, pets, all the above?
Sure. I am an avid snow skier and heading off on a ski trip on Monday. So I'm counting down the days, and I am a single mum to an amazing 4-year-old. So I'll be taking her for the first time. And I had my daughter on my own because I still hadn't met Mr. Right. So I am riding along solo through life, building my empire over here, and I guess just traveling the world one country at a time.
Awesome. And why do you like skiing so much?
I was taught when I was about 3 from my dad, and we were very lucky. We've skied many different places in the US and in Europe and Australia and New Zealand. And just the feeling of being up on the snow, not a care in the world, wind in your face. It's just an epiphany moment, I would say. It's just, I guess the mountains, they just have so much beauty behind them and so much history as well. So yeah, it's definitely a place that I feel free and thoroughly enjoy. And I guess being a mum and all of that, there's been a couple of years of not skiing. So I'm very excited to get back on the slopes.
Nice. Yeah, I love the mountains and I love being out in nature and the views. But I don't like the cold and the snow. So I usually go to the mountains in the summer and do some hiking.
Some hiking
versus
great.
skiing. But that's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, tell us a little bit about your career. What was one of your first, real jobs, if you will, and how did your career progress? And tell us about, of course, being an assistant, and then we'll get to the point of starting a virtual assistant business. But why don't you give us a little bit of your career story?
Yeah, I guess from a very young age, I always knew that I wanted to work and I wanted the independence to be able to buy things and do things when I wanted to. So my very first job was McDonald's, which I don't know about the US, but in Australia, it's generally the typical one that you get at the age of 14. And then I actually really didn't know what I wanted to do, to be fair. And I was in the late couple of years of high school and still didn't know, wasn't able to change subjects at all, and decided to leave high school and not finish due to the fact that I really didn't know. And had a conversation with my mum, and she said, if you leave, you do need to go to college and you still need to further your education. And she told me about one of her cousins that was working in a hotel over in London and told me about the experience of what that was like. And that sounded interesting at the time. So I jumped in and went to college and went and studied hospitality and events management. And that really cemented my career in the hotel industry, and spent 20 years in the hotel industry, and was very lucky and fortunate to be able to travel around to different hotels on the east coast of Australia, spent some time working in a hotel in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi, and also some time over in Vanuatu. And that very much has built a lot of that administration side of my career, really organization of lots of different events and whatnot. And funnily enough, but not funnily enough, 2020, COVID hit, and I was working as an event manager and sales director in a hotel, and we were the first hotel in the country to become a quarantine hotel. So all of us first to be stood down, all of us out of a job, and from a very rocky year of in and out of different jobs that just weren't ticking the boxes for me, I landed an executive assistant role in the real estate industry, and soon realized that industry wasn't for me. And it was just by chance that I connected with an old industry colleague that had told me about the world of virtual assistants. And she was only working 3 days a week, earning more than she had in the hotel industry. And I liked the sound of that. I was just like, I don't really want to work 60 hours and be paid for, only 38. And I want to have the freedom to travel wherever I choose. And there were so many times throughout the years where you'd go and ask for annual leave and say, I really want to take this holiday, and then be told, no, it's the busiest time, you can't take time off. So very restrictive as well. So I watched the space for about 6 months, and then had a not so enjoyable week in the current job that I was doing, set my business up within 24 hours, secured my first client in 24 hours. I was working my full-time job and one client for a week, and then realized how many leads and how many clients were out there, and went in one day and just said, I'm done. Took the leap of faith. Really, really scary being a single mom. I've got a mortgage, and I just decided to go all in. And within 3 weeks, I was fully booked. I had a schedule of up to 40 hours. And then within 6 weeks of starting, I was earning more than I was in my executive role in the hotel.
Wow, that's great. So I want to ask you plenty about this, but before we really dive into the virtual assistant world, I have to ask, are there any funny stories or just crazy situations in your time as a hotel, hospitality, events? I know there's a lot of interesting people that come in and out. My dad was a hotel manager back in the day. I know there's a lot of interesting things that can happen. So I'm just curious if anything interesting or funny or challenging happened in those stories of the hospitality industry.
Yeah, I guess, where do I start? There's probably a lot over time, and some very interesting people that we've met. I think meeting famous people was definitely a highlight. When I was working on the front desk days, and actors and things like that would come in from TV shows and things like that here in Australia. We all got a little bit starstruck. That was kind of cool. But probably the amount of sort of different people that we found when I was working on the front desk, and I was only 19 at the time, that we'd have criminals staying where, they'd call us up, and the amount of things that they would spin to us. And then by the time that we'd call the police, we had one guy that was actually wanted for arrest in 5 different states of Australia. So that was a little bit scary. He'd actually pulled the toilet out of the floor and to completely destroy the room. So that was interesting, to say the least. And then probably the other thing that I found quite interesting in my career, I've managed to escape 2 cyclones by only a couple of weeks from leaving different resorts. So the first one, I was working as the events manager on Hayman Island, a beautiful island in the Whitsundays here in Australia, and decided it was my time to leave and move on to a different job. And I had done so. And then 2 weeks later, Cyclone Yasi came through and destroyed the entire resort, destroyed a lot of the different islands and the hotels up there, which was quite devastating. just by chance. And then when I was living in Vanuatu, again, I'd made the decision to move back to Australia and really build a life here in Queensland. And 2 weeks later, Cyclone Pam came through. And even just watching the conference centre on the news with all the staff and the guests and like the chandelier shaking in the in the conference centre, it was just like, that could have been me. And it was just so fascinating that it's happened twice now that I've left and then cyclones have come through afterwards and I've managed to not be in an experience like that.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you jumped, you said you set up your business in 24 hours and then you said you had your first client. How'd you get your first client?
Via a Facebook group, which has been certainly quite fruitful and lucrative the entire way through my business. I would say 85% of our business comes from Facebook groups.
Now, how would you, recommend diving into Facebook groups in a non-spammy, salesy way to get clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. It comes up all the time. So there are certain days of which you can self-promote in a lot of the groups. And in a lot of the rules, they say that they might have a promotion day on a Monday where you can put your promotional post and do hashtag promo Monday, and then you can do that. And again, it's about crafting the message to attract your ideal audience, not just throwing things at a wall or whatnot. So being really articulate with the wording. Then what I find and what I coach on is, rather than going out there and creating the demand and creating all these offers and spending time generating all these packages and throwing them out to no one, there is so many business owners looking for VAs and they go to the Facebook groups because they want recommendations from other people that have worked with the virtual assistants. They want social proof to know that they're the right people to support them in their business. And for a small business owner, it can be quite, I guess, nervous or a bit of a jump for them to spend some money and invest in somebody to come in and support their business, especially if it's just been them as well. So they really look for that social proof, and it's about responding to the ads per se, or when people are asking for support in an articulate way to stand out from everybody else, rather than, I see it all the time on a lot of the international ones, people just write, I'm interested. Well, that business owner is not going to jump in and look at your profile, look you up to then reach out and make an inquiry. It's about giving them the correct information that they need there. And also just showing up for yourself and showcasing your skills and your expertise in that comment. So if you've got 20 years experience in what that client is looking for, actually state that in the comments. So there may be 40 comments on one lead. How do you make sure that that business owner comes to you for an inquiry and opens up a conversation with you rather than everybody else? So standing out from the crowd and just being a little bit unique and a little bit more targeted with the way that you respond to the lead has definitely been a bit of a secret sauce for me, as well as not taking every lead to the detail, because clients don't know what they don't know, and sometimes they don't even know what a virtual assistant can do. So I hear it all the time where people are like, oh, there's been no leads for me, whereas one lead might be suitable, but if they don't open up a conversation with the client, they're not going to know. So I've actually had some clients that maybe from a post didn't sound like that they were a client for us or didn't have enough hours. And then after actually having a call with them, worked out they're actually a 10-hour-a-week client. It's actually really suited for our higher level services. So really just having more conversations with more business owners and then just being strategic on how you respond so you stand out from the crowd.
Nice. So what about, lots of questions. What about maybe for those, let's do the scenario of those who are just starting, or maybe they're trying it out. Maybe they are in between jobs and wanting to get their feet wet and try it out and see if they can get some traction. How would you approach the packaging and hourly rates and pricing strategy for someone just starting?
It's a great question. It comes up all the time. I actually recorded a podcast episode on hourly versus packages last week. And it's really about knowing the difference between the two and that they both have a purpose. So a package is really where it's an outcome-driven job or an assignment. So using social media as an example, if you're paying somebody for a social media package, you have the same deliverables every single time. So you might have 3 posts, captions, and hashtags. You know that every single week that's what they're going to get. If you're working within someone's business more of an assistant, having hourly rate can work really well because you don't really know how long it's going to take to do all of the tasks. So when people are starting out, I always recommend that they start with hourly, because then at least they're compensated for all the work that they're going to do. So if a client reaches out to them or they're a demanding client and they're constantly on the phone to them or constantly having Zoom calls, all of their time is compensated. So I definitely suggest hourly is a really good spot to start when people are just jumping in, and then they can learn about packages and making sure that the packages are profitable in order to make sure it's actually worth doing a package. There's nothing worse than creating a package based upon how long you think it's going to be without understanding the duration of the project and it actually not being profitable at all, and sometimes diluting the rate even further.
Mm-hmm. So what about hourly rates then? Like, how would you start off with the hourly rate? Would you start lower and then over time go higher? Would you start higher, like, and then see what the demand is? What's a good way to kind of figure out what your hourly rate should be?
Yeah. I'm very much a believer of pricing your worth, and especially if you're doing it as a side hustle. You want to make doing extra hours worth it. And a lot of people think that they need to charge lower because they don't have experience in the VA industry. So take away the word VA industry and they're jumping into the space because they've already got experience. They've probably, could have been an EA for 15 years supporting directors. They already know how to do the work. So valuing the experience that they've got, valuing the education that they paid for or any money that they've invested in furthering their education, and pricing according to that. So there's a few things that I normally get people to do is, one, see what the market is demanding so you can have a baseline. Also work out how much money you need to spend in your business to be profitable. So whether you have to take tax out, or in Australia, superannuation, whilst it's optional to pay ourselves, it's something to keep in mind that if we're not putting that away for our retirement, there's also tech that we need to pay for to keep our business running. So one, working out what the breakdown is of that, then working out the benefits for a client of actually having somebody that's experienced in the work that you're going to provide, and then providing the additional value. And the reason why I like to price on value is if somebody jumps in and starting, say, $30 an hour, that by the time they take everything out, it dilutes the rate, and then they're just on this hamster wheel of just getting clients and just getting it done. And the idea, I believe, of people moving to the VA space is to actually make a business out of it. Actually, this is going to be their life, have the flexibility. Whilst, yes, it's a great start as a side hustle, it has the potential to be a business and, I guess, be a forever job for anyone. So if they're starting really low, it's going to take them much longer to be able to either reduce days in their full-time job or even replace their income. So definitely starting higher and waiting for the ideal clients is definitely the strategy that I like to use.
Love it. I love starting higher. That's great. And I like what you said about make sure it's worth the extra time that you're spending. It's like, it took me a while to get to that point when I started doing coaching and I did some virtual assistant work a little bit when I was in between jobs. And, it's always that, well, if I'm too expensive, nobody's going to hire me. And, but if I'm too cheap, then
I don't
I'm
consider
really,
value.
yeah. And I'm not going to make what I want to make. And it's going to be harder for me to be motivated to do the work. So yeah, starting higher, that's a great tip. Okay. So you start high, you get a few clients. You mentioned you had, you got that first client quickly through a Facebook group or whatever. Did you, and I know you said Facebook was a big part of ongoing scaling, but in those first, several weeks, was it more Facebook leads or was it word of mouth from the first client, or what was the best trigger that you could kind of pull for scaling early on?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. I guess once I'd taken the jump, then I told everybody. And I've kind of always listened to entrepreneur podcasts and everything, and everyone says, just tell everybody because you never know who's going to need your services. And I understand that sometimes that's a little bit difficult for people that are still working because they don't want their employer to know. So the second that I actually went out there and put it on Instagram, put it on my LinkedIn, like, this is my business, then I started to have conversations with people that I'd known in the hotel industry that had their own business to be like, oh, I think I need a virtual assistant. Or my second client was actually a friend that had her own virtual assistant business. So I went and subcontracted and worked for her for some time. And then another ex-colleague from a different industry that I'd worked in had also recommended me to a client that she was working with. And then I think the fourth client, that was from Facebook. So it was a little bit of both. And even now, a lot of the leads that we come through are somebody recommended you, I've seen you on Facebook, or this person told me to reach out to you. So it's now a collective of, definitely word of mouth as well.
Nice. So then did you get to the point where you had to hire help?
I did. Yeah. I probably sat on the idea for about 4 months just because I was trying to navigate the legalities and how do I pay them? How do I make sure it's worth it? What do I pay them? So really took the time to do that. And I was probably a little scared, to be honest, because I was just like, what if they don't do the work that I do? Or what if it's not good enough for the clients? So that took a lot to overcome. And it was probably about 6 months later, I hired my first person, and then that just snowballed. We just started to get more clients, more team, and within 6 months we had a team of 15 around the country.
Wow. So is that how big you are now, or have you kind of grown more? Do you like to keep it around that size?
Yeah, I like to keep it around that size because if it got any bigger, then I would have to bring in an operations manager or a general manager to kind of take the pressure off myself. And because now I run both businesses, so I sit across the virtual assistant business, and now a lot of the focus is on coaching new VAs or coaching existing VA businesses to grow and scale their business. So I work pretty much 90% of my time in that business and then oversee the other business for about 10%. So if we were to grow even further, we'd need another one of me into the VA business to support that growth.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the coaching side. Why coaching? What's been your experience with coaching in your own business? And maybe even when do you think it's appropriate for someone who starts their business or has been virtual assistant to maybe add that as another stream of income as a coach?
Yeah, great question. I think once they see the results for themselves and once they realize that they've got something tangible. So I started coaching after 4 months, so quite soon. But I knew that the strategy that I'd created was working and I had been doing it every single day. So it was very much a slow burn, and I started coaching one-to-one, and every couple of months I'd have somebody else come in, and I created a 6-week program, and it just evolved from there. And then last year I decided to get qualifications in coaching to really take it to the next level and to really support that growth. Because whilst I can sit here and I can tell people about the things that I've done, coaching is just that next level of supporting somebody as an individual, how to help people overcome limiting beliefs and really shift forward mindset wise, which I didn't know how to do in the past. So I went and became an NLP master practitioner, and now I can support my coaching clients on a deeper level and support them in overcoming limiting beliefs, programming through time, money mindset as well, because that comes up a lot with people. And then it comes back to the, pricing less to think that they need new clients. So really supporting them on that deeper level. And that actually changed my business, even though, one, I can support people a lot better, but it also allowed me to grow as a person. So showing up every single day in my business, 110%, really changing the way that I work with clients in all facets of business. So rather than I need this client to come in and, pay the bills, it's rather changing a lot more of the mindset to be like, I actually get to help this person today, and really leading with heart and soul in my business to really provide a really great space of working business relationships. And that's really what changed my business. So everything that we do in our business, we do with our highest intention of with heart and with soul and with love. And it's really, like I said, transformed the business. And then, really built that culture within our business and built that really long-standing relationship with our clients. And then beginning of this year, I decided I really wanted to make more of an impact. I wanted to reach more people. And the reason I became a coach was because I had the successes. I wanted other people to have the successes. I wanted the EAs that are burnt out from working 15 years in corporate space, the mums that are wanting to go back to work but don't want to leave their little ones at home, and share with the world that there is this opportunity out there for them to jump into and actually make a life out of it. So I decided that the time that I had in my business was valuable. So I went from one-to-one coaching to one-to-many. And that's definitely allowed me to grow the business, to impact more women and more people around the world, to give them the opportunity to have a life that, I've created for myself.
So what's maybe a practical example or tip when it comes to career coaching, maybe something that you do with your clients or that coaches have done with you in the past, maybe an exercise or a question to ponder? What's something that, in that coaching world has really helped you or is a good tip in that area?
Yeah, I think that probably the first one is self-reflection. So when things come up for people, is to rather than be like, oh, well, I don't want to jump on that Zoom call and I don't want to price up here because I think it's greedy asking for that much money, and getting them to self-reflect, well, why do I think that? What is it that's telling yourself that that's too much? Because I guarantee you that there's 20 other people out there that are valuing themselves that are offering a higher price. So what is it that you're not valuing in yourself and your business to say that you don't deserve to have that sort of money? And to really support them in that growth, because that learning piece is a every single day learning piece. We're not all going to be experts in knowing our worth and trusting ourselves tomorrow, that they have to do it as a daily practice every single day. And imposter syndrome, self-doubt, it comes up every single day for the women that I coach. And it's about really giving them the tools necessary to support them to do that themselves on a daily basis.
Love it. Love it. Well, Sasha, what is maybe one thing that you want to encourage or inspire or just challenge assistants, virtual assistants or executive and office assistants, whatever type of assistant you are listening right now? What would you like to say to the assistants of the world?
Yeah, great question. I really want to challenge and I guess break through the box that we can be put in by society, and that the typical 9-to-5 grind is not the way that life has to be. And if you've ever felt like an entrepreneur in an employee's body, then this is a space for you, and you can use the skills that you've already got to really make something for yourself and really take ownership of it. And I guess really living life on your own terms and not having to answer somebody every single day or get told, no, you can't do this. No, you can't take this holiday. That there is actually this big wide world of entrepreneurship that you've already got the resources to do, to jump in and just use the skills and the experience that you've already got and actually live life how you choose to live it.
Love it. Well said. Well, I want to wrap up with something maybe a little fun and maybe a little vulnerable, if that's okay.
Okay, go for it.
What's the biggest mistake you've made in your virtual assistant business?
Ooh, I think in the beginning, just saying yes to every client. And now it's very much about trying to find the people that are aligned with our values. So in the beginning, it was just like, oh, they sound great. Yes, let's just get the money in the door. And then, months later, I'm just like, they're not my people. We don't get on. It's, or we're too similar, or we try to make recommendations and they don't want to listen. It's just, sometimes the symmetry is off. So yeah, definitely you don't need to say yes to everybody, and, you get to work with the people that you choose to work with that are aligned with, your thoughts and your values as well.
Hmm. Nice. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. And where is the best place for people to reach out if they're, just want to say hi or check out what you're doing with Virtually Assisted and your virtual assistant coaching, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, great. Probably Instagram is the best place. I hang out there on most days. So Virtually Assisted AU for the VA business and Sasha Eburne __ for the VA coaching business.
Awesome. Well, I'll put those links in the show notes as well as your website and LinkedIn and all the other fun stuff at leaderassistant.com/236, leaderassistant.com/236. Sasha, thanks again for being on the show. It sounds like you've got a great team and a great trip coming up in the snow, and so
Yes.
hope you have fun skiing, and best of luck to you, and thanks for sharing your insight with my listeners.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBurrows.com